Want more of this? Then watch this video. Maybe you'll learn something. The anti-tank class in Held Loose is arguably one of the most fun infantry roles in the game. Who doesn't like blowing stuff up? But it's also one of the most complex, as you have a lot of different weapons at your disposal as you rank the class up that require you to know at least a little bit, if not a lot, to make these weapons effective at their highest potentials. And that's what this video is going to talk about from top to bottom, essentially how to play anti-tank right, going through all the weapons from top to bottom and what you need to know so you can be better at destroying vehicles, tanks, alike, so that you can make a massive difference for your team. To start off, we'll talk about rocket launchers first, which will be your first default class for most factions minus the Russians, but we'll get to that soon enough. Now, with your class, you'll have a rifle, handful of grenades, and a rocket launcher with 2 rockets. Now, the main thing with the rocket launcher is that you can reach out and hit enemy armor. You don't have to run up to it, you can engage it at least some degree of ranges. Obviously, the effective range is going to determine how good you are with the rocket launcher. For maybe you newer players, it might be more like 50 meters. For experienced players, it might be 150, 200 meters. It just depends. And that comes with the experience. But it's still a weapon that you can use to at least hit targets from range. Rocket launchers are also perfect at destroying garrisons if you can't get close to one, but you have a rocket that can do that. So you can use this for more than just armor, but obviously its main purpose is destroying vehicles. Now that we've talked about the rocket launcher basics, let's talk about the difference between a damaging hit and a non-damaging hit, since you may still hit the target and do nothing. So when I hit the target and do damage, you'll see a massive explosion, and sparks will start flying from where you quote-unquote penetrated. And then soon afterwards, smoke and fire will billow out of it. Now, what you just saw as well was that I bounced off. I hit the hull that I couldn't penetrate, which means sparks just simply fly anywhere, it leaves a mark, but no damage actually happened. This also happens maybe if you ricochet off the target, and that means if you hit it at an extreme angle. But, say if I want to get a hull shot here, boom, same thing. But let's go through the noise of what happens when you hit and do damage, and if you simply bounce off. Let's listen in. Since we're on the topic of non-damaging hits and damaging hits, let's talk about how a tank can actually be damaged. So the tank is divided into 4 different categories. The tracks, which help mobility but are not technically part of the hull. The engine, which is in the rear of the vehicle that can be damaged along with the hull, which helps mobility. The turret, which obviously helps the gun traverse, uses the machine gun, etc. And the hull itself, which is just the core of the tank. This is what you need to fully destroy to completely wipe out the tank. Now, say, for example, you can't get behind an enemy tank like you see here, and all you have are frontal shots. What you should be going for, though, is the tracks, because although you won't be damaging the hull or doing any actual damage to the tank, you'll be slowing down the tank. Now, track damage and engine damage and turret damage all relate something to the vehicle itself compared to the hull. If you destroy the tracks, the tank is stuck in 1 gear, which means it can only go a couple kilometers per hour, meaning that it's almost dead in the water, essentially. By doing that, you're limiting the tank's mobility, which means someone can maybe get a satchel on it, or maybe your own tanks can move up and destroy it. The options open up from there. So if you can't get behind the tank or on the sides, depending on what rocket launcher you're using, then you have an option there. Just one example, though, for describing the damage of the modules of a tank. Now, I did say that the rocket launchers are different per faction. Let's go over a little sheet here that will tell you what can do what and the differences between them. So here is this nice little picture from the Held Loose eTool Discord page. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check that out. But this talks about all the rocket launchers and the AT rifles and their effectiveness on what they can penetrate and damage. Now, the common misconception is that, say, the Panzerschreck does more damage than the other bazookas. That is not true. They do have more penetration than the US and Russian ones. Don't get the penetration and damages confused. because the damages are all the same across the rocket launchers. It's just what they can penetrate, there are some differences. So starting off with the US one, because we have been using that a lot in the footage here. With recon tanks, it can pierce anywhere. For light tanks, it can pierce the side, the back, and the sides and back of the turret of a Lux. For the sides of a heavy and a medium, it can only pierce the back. Can't pierce the turret. It can't pierce the sides. So that's that. But the Panzerschrecken PIAT for the Germans and the British respectively can go through the front of mediums and on the sides of heavies, where the US and Russian rocket launchers can't, along with the AT rifles at the bottom. Now, one thing I want to say here, since this is a common misconception, the rocket launchers have the same damage, which we'll get to the damage numbers in a minute. But the rocket launchers have different penetrations, as I've just outlined. I just want to make sure that part is abundantly clear, since that is a common misconception of, oh, the Panzerschreck does more damage. No, it has better penetration rather than damage overall. So just keep that in mind with the rocket launchers. And for some reason, if you wish to confirm this list, the practice range is open to all 4 factions. You can test anything you need to. Just be careful on the Panzer IV in particular, because where the tracks meet is very close to the hull. It can give the false impression of a hull hit. So just keep that part in mind. Now here we have the rocket damage stats, starting off with the Allies. This counts for the United Kingdom, the Russians, and the Americans against all the armor. Then we have the German rocket launcher against the British armor. Firefly also counts for the heavy, same with the Cromwell to the Crusader. Then you have the Russian tanks, and then the Americans. And if you see an R by it, that means that you can't penetrate, so there is no damage number for them. Lastly, we have the ability to aim the rocket launchers. So what I have is a photo of all 3 rocket launchers paired together. What you do is you put in the ping icon, and you use the sights of the rocket launcher itself to adjust where you need to aim for a given distance. Now, obviously, some of this will take time and experience to truly master the ranges, but what you could do to help you out is, I believe these ranges are using the steady aim feature. If you don't know how to access it, go to your settings to the infantry tab. For me, it's right bumper on console, but it could be different for you on PC or on any console. So check that out so you know what button to press while you're standing still. Zooming in and then using those ranges to effectively hit your target. Now, I did mention there was some AT rifles. The Russians and the British both have them. The Russians have this as their first class, which would take place as the rocket launcher class for all the other factions. The Russians do have a rocket launcher, as I already mentioned, but it's at level 8. So you got a while to go before you get it. So you're kind of stuck with this until further notice. The British also have a AT rifle unlocked at level 8, the Boys AT rifle. But why you would use that? Maybe for joking around and having fun? Sure, but why wouldn't you run anything better that you've got? Anyway, the AT rifle is, by definition, the death of 1,000 cuts. It's got the effectiveness in terms of penetration as the rocket launchers for the US and Russians, but again, more slow at killing vehicles. The AT rifle has to be used in the prone position. You cannot use it while standing, and although it's very effective against infantry, it's not the best against tanks. As you can see, it takes a lot of hits to destroy a vehicle. And the thing with the AT rifle, though, is you can resupply it with regular small arms ammunition boxes compared to rocket launchers where you need either a commander drop, a Jeep ammo box, or an explosive ammo box. This thing only needs small arms ammunition. So it is convenient to find ammo, but again, it doesn't do that much damage. So just keep that part in mind. Now, in terms of aiming, it's pretty simple. You aim it like a normal gun. There will be some bullet drop, but that's to be expected. Here are the damage numbers for both AT rifles. They're on the screen. Again, once again, you can test this if you wish, but these are accurate upon testing. So that's the AT rifle for you. Next up, we have the AT gun, one of my personal favorites. This is something that you can build on the battlefield as long as you have 50 supplies. Typically, if you have a support player with you, this is perfect. And to get the most of the AT gun, you do need to have 2 people, a shooter and a loader and gun turner. And the AT gun, in simplest terms, is a tank cannon with high penetration but lower damage numbers. The AT gun is very effective against enemy armor, as it can penetrate most armors unless you're at a extreme angle. As you see here, I just wiped out a Panther heavy tank in 3 shots to the hull. Now, obviously, in a combat situation, that's going to be a lot harder to manage since you're going to be under fire, the tank's going to be moving, but it just shows you what 3 shots to the hull can do. And it goes the same with medium tanks. It's still a very good weapon, however, it does have some flaws. The gun itself is very slow to move, hence why you need 2 people to run the gun itself. If you have one person trying to swap back and forth between the positions, it's just going to go very slowly, and chances are that tank is going to have a chance to return fire and kill you, which leads me to the second point. If you get hit, one of 2 things will happen. Either A, the whole crew will die and your gun's at the mercy of the enemy tank, or B, it's just going to simply explode if it's a high explosive round. So there is that. Also, it does take 5 ammunition per round for the AT gun. And what I mean by that, so the munitions come from the commander's stockpile. So that means every shot you use comes from the commander's stockpile for being able to call in airstrikes, such as bombing runs, strafe runs, and everything like that. So be careful with how many shots you're using. Don't be using these necessarily on infantry, as sure, these shots can kill them, but they're essentially armor-piercing rounds. They're not meant to be used on infantry. But that is the AT gun in a nutshell. Here are the damage numbers for the AT gun. Screenshot it, pause the video, do what you need to, but here you go. The last class we've talked about is the Satchel class, and depending on what faction you play, there is some variety, mostly just with the British, but the main thing with the Satchel charge is that it's you throw in the tank, and as long as it doesn't get diffused, it will blow up the tank instantly, no matter where you put it, like so. Now that was a Panther heavy tank that just got one-shotted, which means you definitely can one-shot mediums, lights, and recons if you get the Satchel off. Now this immense power comes at a price. You have to be standing still when you throw in a Satchel. It takes about 4 or 5 seconds to get a Satchel down and placed. You can set it to 30, 60, or 120 seconds. Recommended though you use the 30-second timer, just because you never know what could happen. Maybe that tank drives into a bunch of your forces, and then boom, you get a bunch of your troops killed. Because the Satchel does have a 25-meter radius, which we'll explain down the road. Now, Satchels can damage and or destroy tanks if it's placed near it, but more likely than not, if it's placed near it, it's only going to damage it. Even if it is fairly close, if it's on the front or back, it will most likely kill it within a couple meters. But if it's on the sides, then the tracks will absorb most of the damage, unless it's like right next to it. But at that point, you might as well just put the Satchel on the tank proper. Why risk it unless you're trying to go for a combo kill? But at that point, that happens so few and far between that you shouldn't even try it anyway. Satchels are also perfect for clearing out structures built by engineers. Now, if barbed wire is already placed down like it was already there when the map loaded in, then Satchels will not destroy them. But if, say, an engineer builds barbed wire or fortifications of any kind, then the Satchel can destroy it within a 25-meter radius. And I will show it off now. So what me and a couple boys here, Steely and Cornholio here, we made some fortifications on a private server and tested out the ranges. The range, regardless of building or whatever it is you're hiding behind, it is a 25-meter radius of destruction. Essentially, if you see the red circle, you're dead or potentially badly wounded. So the thing with the Satchel, though, is it will go through buildings. So if you need a building clear, like a pillbox or a bunker, and you want to just throw a Satchel down and there's a bunch of people inside, you're going to get a lot of kills. Is there a fortress nest of barbed wire and barricades, and you can sneak up close enough, drop a Satchel, make a hole. The Satchel is perfect for not just dealing with armor, but for fortifications and potentially clearing a way for your allies. Just be forewarned that if allies are nearby, it could definitely kill some of your friendlies. Just keep that in mind. Along with the Satchel charge for every faction, you do get 4 anti-tank mines. And these mines are good for maybe if you want to try and throw a couple mines at crossroads and maybe catch a unsuspecting truck or tank. These are perfect for that. And although they don't one-shot vehicles, depending on what they are, of course, they can be very good to slow down enemy vehicles and enemy armor alike. Now, an experienced tank crew is going to most likely see these if they're on the main roads, as I do see a lot of people just throwing them on the main roads hoping that they'll stick. But if you put them in like some blades of grass or an area that can be not as easily seen, you might get better results. That's my recommendation with mines. Or maybe if a tank is stationary and you don't have any satchels, just run up and put some mines up, you'll do some damage to it. One thing to keep in note, though, is if you are, say, on an offensive or warfare and you haven't gotten to the enemy's HQ sector, or you're attacking the HQ sector objective, you cannot throw mines down in the enemy HQ in the 2 sectors that are the HQ sectors. Just keep that in mind. Now, if you are on the last objective, then yes, you can place mines in these areas. As you see here, it won't let me. It says cannot place in locked enemy base. Now, since there isn't any hard damage numbers, we did some more testing for this. So starting off with recon tanks, if you run the mines over with your wheels, it simply blows off the wheels and you're down to basically very slow speeds, and the hull takes 1/4 damage. If I were to hit another mine or a rocket hits me or anything like that, I'd be dead. Now, after doing some repairs and getting back to full health, we move to where the mine will detonate underneath the body of the tank, and boom, I'm dead. Just so one shot. When we did testing with the light tank, it was essentially the same result minus the hull damage to the tank itself. But once we had the mine detonate underneath the body of the tank by just simply driving over it without the tracks hitting it, boom, dead again. Then we did the medium tank, and essentially all it did was damage the tracks to 1/4 damage. And when we had run over by where it detonates underneath the hull, it brought us down to 1/4 damage of the hull itself. From there, we did the heavy tank, and same thing for the most part as the medium. Basically, 1/3 of the track health is remaining. Upon some repairs, we got back to full health, and underneath the hull, same thing as the damage to the track, except to the hull, it's now 1/3. All the mines are the same across all the factions, by the way. Just want to throw that part out there. And with half tracks, it is essentially like light vehicles. If you run over with your tracks, it will destroy the tracks and damage the vehicle slightly. But if you run over with the body or the vibration sets it off or just anything like that, it will destroy the vehicle one shot. Now, unlike tanks, though, if you're in a light vehicle like a half track, you will die to the explosion. So just there's that part to keep in mind with the vehicles. But that is the damage numbers of the mines. Now, the British do have one extra weapon in their arsenal if you are playing on them, regardless if you're the British 8th Army or regular Allies faction. They have the Gammon bomb. They have 2 of them. These are essentially impact grenades that can be used against light vehicles and light armor to damage or destroy them. Against light vehicles like trucks, they can be a 2-shot or a 1-shot depending if you hit the engine. So with these, though, here is a chart of where and what you can damage with these Gammon bombs. Now, just a piece of advice, though, they're not that good against tanks. They're really good against trucks and garrisons. This is where you would use them without having to use a satchel, so you didn't have to waste that satchel. But just keep that in mind with this. I wouldn't recommend throwing these at tanks, as for recons, you need at least 2, and at least with lights, you need 3 in the engine deck, just so you know. Now, this may have seemed like a very long-winded video, and may have seemed like I didn't give too much advice, but mostly because a lot of this comes with experience. I could show you all these things of how to play AT with all the ranges, and that's fair. That's exactly what I did. However, in the battlefield, it's obviously a lot different. You have to be on your A game. You're getting shot at. There's a lot more variables in play, but this will come with experience. But now that you know what everything's going on with AT, essentially, it should make your life a lot easier to deal with tanks and just enemies in general, and make this class way more fun to enjoy. So I hope you got something for the video. Take care, and send some tank crews back to the HQ. I'll see you in the next one.